Hi, this is Chris Coleman from the Tennessee Justice Center. We're going to get started with the webinar in about 2 minutes. Just give everybody a couple more minutes to join, and we'll be back then. Hi, this is Chris Coleman from the Tennessee Justice Center, and just want to do a quick sound check to make sure everybody can hear. If you could go, someone who's listening could go to the questions and just type in that you can hear me. That would be helpful, and then we can get started. Can anyone hear me? Okay, I got confirmation that I'm audible. All right, so let's get started. Okay, so many people saw the Tennessean story yesterday. It was picked up by a number of other outlets. But what has been revealed recently is that about 128,000 kids lost their either TennCare or coverage or Cover Kids coverage in the last 2 years. So we know that over 100,000 of these children lost TennCare coverage in the past 2 years. Another 30,000 lost Cover Kids coverage last year alone. And the Tennesseans reported that the numbers could be a lot higher than that because TennCare originally released data showing that another 52,000 children were removed from the program in February from TennCare, which is the biggest drop in any month on record. But no one at TennCare seemed to notice this, that 50,000 children lost coverage in a month until people started asking questions. And then they looked again and took that data offline and are now insisting that that was incorrect, that 52,000 children did not lose coverage in February. They probably should have checked the math when they saw that 50,000 children lost coverage or when their own data showed that to see if that was right, but they didn't. So, but also at the same time when this is happening, in 2017, Tennessee saw a 20% increase in the number of uninsured children. So what's happening here? Why are we losing coverage? Why are so many Tennessee children losing coverage? And to get there, we have to go back a little bit to what's called the redetermination process. TennCare is required by federal law to redetermine the eligibility of most enrollees once a year to make sure that they still meet the eligibility criteria for the program. This is a federal requirement. But in 2014, when the Affordable Care Act was fully implemented, it changed the way that income was calculated for many categories, most of the major categories of TennCare. It switched to what's called a modified adjusted gross income process. And before that time, all TennCare eligibility was processed through a computer system at the Department of Human Services called Accent. And Accent was state-of-the-art 1989 computer system. It's the Atari 2600 of computers. And And TennCare realized very quickly that they were not going to be able to update this decades-old accent system to comply with these new eligibility rules. So TennCare entered into a $35.7 million contract, first with arms defense contractor called Northrop Grumman, to develop this new TennCare eligibility determination system, TEDS. And the TennCare realized this in 2012, that they weren't going to be able to update the accent system. They entered in this contract with TEDS. It was required by law to be operational by October 1st, 2013. But it wasn't. And in fact, TennCare did not have a working computer eligibility system until March of this year. So they went basically a 5-year delay in getting an eligibility determination system. During this time, what happened? Well, first, a lot of it had to do with the initial application process. There was no computer. They didn't know when it was going to happen. They sent everybody to healthcare.gov, which was having its own problems at the time, and the result looks very similar to what's happening now. Babies not getting coverage, children left in a lurch. So that was all happening at the application end. At the same time, because it didn't have this computer system, it received a waiver from the federal government to stop doing any redeterminations, and it did this for nearly 3 years because it didn't have a working computer system. But at a certain point, they were not redetermining people. They realized they had to do this by federal law, so they hired a contractor. This was a company called Maximus. And Maximus had to manually redetermine every enrollee's eligibility. This was, again, a very ad hoc process. It was very messy. And to add to this, on the processing side, on the enrollee side, the renewal packets they sent out to do this are these massive 98-page phone book-looking packets of information that families had to complete and return, and in fact, individuals had to complete and return, because initially they were sending them, each individual family member had to fill out a separate renewal packet. And in violation of federal law, these were not pre-populated with any information at all. What TennCare was supposed to do is send out these forms asking for only the information it does not have. Any information that it has in its own system, it was supposed to already pre-populate this form with that. They didn't do that, so people are getting these massive packs, not pre-populated, and they have to respond to them within 40 days. And this led to lots of problems. First, many people didn't get the renewal packets. Now, part of this could be because people didn't update their addresses. The people are required to, anytime they move, if they're on TennCare, they're supposed to call TennCare and make sure that that address is updated. So some people didn't get it for that reason, though many of these people, for example, did receive SNAP benefits and had updated their address with DHS for their SNAP benefits. TennCare was supposed to check those addresses as well. Many people had updated their address with their medical providers, with their primary care physician. TennCare was supposed to have access to that, but it didn't. And if a renewal packet wasn't returned, they didn't bother to check whether they had the right address. They just terminated people who didn't get the renewal packet, or never returned the renewal packet, or who allegedly never returned the renewal packet, because many people completed the renewal packet, returned it on time, and then called TennCare, who said, we have no record of ever receiving it. And many of these, we had verification that they had returned the packet in the form of a fax receipt or a certified mail receipt, but TennCare had no record of it. Same thing happened when you apply. TennCare often asks for verification of things like income or citizenship or immigration status. People would respond to those requests. TennCare would have no record of ever receiving it. And then there was the same this problem of each packet was individual because TennCare didn't have the ability to link family members because there was no computer system to do this in. So it could get a renewal packet for one child, verify that that child was eligible, and then terminate another child, even though it already had all the information necessary to redetermine the other child. So these are some of the reasons. These are just some of the top shelf problems that we saw with the redetermination process. But this led to a number, again, of very familiar problems. Springfield family caught in a TennCare enrollment gap. Many seniors who are on what are called Medicare savings programs, which are also administered by TennCare, where TennCare pays their premiums for Medicare, they suddenly got reduced Social Security checks with no notice. These premiums started being taken out of their Social Security checks. This led to a call by then Speaker of the House Beth Harwell for the Comptroller of Tennessee to do an audit or a report on what was going wrong. And as the Tennessean said in summarizing the audit report, TennCare officials told state auditors that they don't know how many enrollees in the health coverage program lost Medicaid coverage due to paperwork snarls and confusion arising from the years-long delay in getting a new eligibility redetermination system up and running. Sounds very familiar, and these are the same problems that we are seeing right now with children's coverage. It hit with the Medicare savings programs first, probably because as soon as those people were disenrolled, the next month their Social Security check was cut. In many cases, children, they may go for months without needing to see a doctor, so they didn't know they lost their coverage. So these kids would show up in doctor's offices, doctor would check the computer system, and they wouldn't be enrolled, and the kid or the parent would have no idea why. So I want to go through just some of the down and dirty things that we can do immediately to help people. We are planning on doing another more detailed webinar in the very near future, but we just wanted to get as much information out as possible so people could start helping these kids get their coverage back. So what to do first? The word that we're trying to get out to every parent who has a child on TennCare is they need to call TennCare Connect, which is the TennCare call center, and ask, is my child still enrolled or not? And if TennCare Connect says not enrolled, they need to find out what date the coverage was terminated. And the number's on the screen, 855-259-0701. This is the TennCare Connect, the call center. Most of the calls that we're going to recommend today are going to be to that number. So I recommend you write it down. They should be able to tell you anybody's enrollment status, whether they have received a renewal packet, whether a renewal packet was ever sent, what address was sent. All of that information you should be able to get from TennCare Connect. So first of all, I recommend every parent needs to call TennCare Connect and find out if their child is still enrolled. Second, when they call TennCare Connect, check what address they have on file. There have been TennCare has had a long and tortured history with addresses. When people have called to try to correct addresses, there have been glitches there. There's also been some reports that the transition to the new TED system, which just was implemented last month, that there are some problems in transferring those addresses to TennCare Connect or to TEDS. And watch the mail and respond to anything that you receive from TennCare. And when I say respond, I'll go into more detail about that. But even if it's a request for verification, if you've applied or someone has applied on a child's behalf and they get a request for verification of income, they should respond to it, even if it's just a letter saying, I don't have any income. Never let a letter from TennCare asking for something go unanswered. So what do you do if you find out a child has lost coverage? So the first question is, when was that coverage terminated? There is an appeal deadline of 40 days from the notice of termination. So generally, if it's been less than 40 days since they've been terminated, they can appeal and request continuation of benefits. So the appeal information is here. The continuation of benefits means while the appeal is pending, they get to keep their benefits. Now, technically, you have to appeal within 10 days to get continuation of benefits, but I always say it never hurts to ask. Just always ask for continuation of benefits. You can appeal 3 ways. You can appeal by phone, or you can get a paper appeal form online at the URL that's on the screen, and you can either fax that or mail it. We highly recommend, of these 3 options, that you fax everything, because then you have a paper record, a fax receipt that fax was delivered. Just to give you a sense of what the appeal form looks like, it's a pretty straightforward form. Who wants the appeal? Social Security numbers, all, this obviously isn't the whole form, but you can get it at the URL online. There is a question, what is the problem that you want? We often add, at TJC, when we're appealing these, we often do it, just say, see attached letter, and attach a letter describing the problem. You can, if it's only 3 lines, if you can fit in there, child was wrongly terminated, that's fine too. Again, we recommend everything possible by fax, and save the fax receipt. Save everything. Never throw away a document from TennCare. Okay, what to do if you find out a child has lost coverage? If the child's coverage was terminated more than 40 days ago, so you can appeal if it's less than 40 days. If it's more than 40 days ago, the next question is, did the family receive either the renewal packet or a notice of termination? If the family says, we never got that, it's worth trying to appeal it. They may say, well, we sent it and you're outside the deadline, but that should be the first place, because this is still often about creating a paper trail. So if they say they never got a notice, try appealing. That way, if they didn't get a notice, one was never sent, TennCare should be able to see that in their system. If it's more than 40 days from termination, the child has to reapply for coverage. Now, if there has been a renewal packet sent, they're supposed to respond to the renewal packet in 40 days, but you can actually respond to a renewal packet up to 90 days later. So even if you miss the 40-day deadline for just returning the renewal packet to TennCare, go ahead and send it if it's within 90 days, and you can still get coverage. Okay, and when I say reapply for coverage, there are 2 ways that the person can reapply on a child's behalf. The first is through TEDS, which is now the call center, the application processing center, and the computer system are all together called TennCare Connect. It used to just be the name of the call center. Now it's everything. We recommend for now, for all but one category, which I'll explain in a minute, that you apply through TennCare Connect. It's the new system. It's directly to TennCare. We don't know. We've heard about some problems there. But at this point, this is TennCare's portal. And until we know for sure or discover that there are problems with TennCare Connect, we recommend that people go there to apply. The other option is healthcare.gov. Anyone can always apply through healthcare.gov. And I'm going to talk in a minute about one category of eligibility called medically needy spend down, that it's been our experience that it's simply too burdensome to get a medically needy spend down application through TennCare Connect. And so I'm going to tell you how you can apply for medically needy spend down through the marketplace. If a child's coverage was terminated more than 40 days ago and there's no medical bills in the interim, then it's probably easier just to go ahead and reapply, because there's no reason to get that gap in coverage filled if there are no medical bills. So, and reapplying could make everything just go faster. The child will get coverage immediately, and it'll be done. And also, if the child's coverage was terminated more than 45 days ago, if the family did not get a notice and there are medical bills, you can do both. You can go ahead and appeal, and you can reapply. The reapplication will get the child's coverage immediately, or as soon as that application is processed. Ideally, it should be immediately. And the appeal could then get the coverage backdated to fill the gap and cover any medical bills between the time of termination and the time of reapplication. So you can do all of that together at once. Medically need to spend down. And at the end of this, I just wanted to get some of these best practices out first. I'm going to go through just some of the basic eligibility requirements, and we'll explain this category in more detail. But medically needy spend down is a category for kids who are over income. Their household income is too high for the regular children's category, but they have very high medical bills. Like I said, I'll explain in more detail, but the way that you apply for medically needy spend down, or the way that we recommend you apply, is to go through the federal marketplace at healthcare.gov, just apply regularly. But at the end of that, you will have the option to send for a full Medicaid review. And this is what that looks like, that full Medicaid determination. Click the Send to Medicaid button, and that should get that application to TennCare. So after you send for a full Medicaid review, you still might get a denial. But then you can appeal, and on that appeal form, request a review for medically needy spend down. And what they should do then is ask for the medical bills that the child has accrued or the family has accrued, and they should review them for medically needy spend down. It's a very awkward and cumbersome way to apply for this, but at this point, it's the best way we know, and it is a valuable category of eligibility for kids who are slightly over income but do have a lot of medical bills. The timing. When someone applies for Medicaid, federal law says they have to get a decision within 45 days. There's only one exception to this, and that's the Choices program, which is for long-term care, which has a 90-day time limit. Everything else should be 45 days. So if an applicant does not get a determination within 45 days, if they don't know if they are on the program or not, you can file a delay appeal. It's the same form, but on the second page of the form, it looks like this. You can, for TennCare or Cover Kids, you can check those boxes, and then that first box on number 5, my application has not been processed in 45 days. Check that, and they should be able to get a response. They then have 45 more days to get you a response. I highly recommend paying close attention to this. Given the problems, we're already seeing a lot of delays, and we expect them to increase given the coverage of this. So please file delay appeals. If you're helping someone apply, put a reminder on your phone 45 days out to say, if there is no determination by this date, we need to file a delay appeal. Once you've filed an appeal, TennCare has 90 days to resolve it. And what often happens is they'll send requests for more information. Again, always respond to any request for information from TennCare. But there should be a final decision either through a hearing or through some other resolution where they say, well, we've looked again and we think you're eligible. All of that should be done within 90 days of the filing of the appeal. Even if it takes the full 45 days to get a determination, the effective date of coverage for every category except medically needy spend down is the date of application. So if someone applies on a kid's behalf, the kid goes to the doctor 10 days or goes to the emergency room with a broken arm 10 days later, and then they don't get a determination until 45 days, that coverage will go back to the date of application, and the parents can submit those bills to TennCare to be paid. Either if they pay it out of pocket, they can seek reimbursement, or if they just have bills they've incurred but not paid, they can submit those or have the provider resubmit them to their TennCare MCO. So just some reminder on best practices here. If possible, use a fax to appeal. and use a fax to send verifications, and save all your fax receipts. Similarly, keep all letters and notices you get from TennCare. Always respond to any information that's requested. And it makes sense always as a best practice to gather any documents that you think might be necessary. This is pay stubs, W-2s, immigration paperwork, anything. Just start gathering those. As soon as you know that you're applying for a child, get the parents to start gathering any documents that might be necessary. All right, I'm going to pause for just a second to, let's see, there's a question. Does the new website require a new email address for each account? I typically create emails for each patient.
Different email than for healthcare.gov?
It doesn't, I mean, if the person already has an email address, they can use that email. And it probably makes sense if they have an email account to use the one that they use so that they'll get notifications from it. I would only create a new email if there is no email.
Everybody, can they be on the same account? One application for the whole family?
For a new email address for each account. I mean, I don't know for sure that. I would think that as long as you have an email address attached to every application, then that should work. If not, then I would love to hear about it, because if a parent is applying for multiple children, they shouldn't have to have multiple email addresses to do it. So I would expect, though we don't know for sure, and we'll look into it, but that as long as there is an email address that you can use, that should work. Any other general questions? I'm going to go through some basics of eligibility just so everyone will have a sense of what children are eligible. But feel free to keep asking questions. Is the mobile app working now? They announced that the mobile app was working. I have not looked at the mobile app. I've only looked online. So if anybody on this call has any information about the mobile app, you can respond. We're looking it up right now too, and I will let you know. Okay. One of the reasons that this increase in uninsured children is so troubling is that almost every child is eligible for something. There are really 4 major sources of coverage. There's basic TennCare Medicaid. There's Cover Kids, which is our CHIP program. There's TennCare Standard, which I'll explain. And then there's marketplace plans. So there are no gaps, unlike for single adults, childless adults who are in a coverage gap because Tennessee didn't expand Medicaid. That only applies to adults because children up to the age of 19 are eligible or categorically eligible for TennCare, and then they only have to meet the income requirements. So there shouldn't be uninsured children, or with a couple of exceptions that I'll mention at the end. So children up to 19 can get TennCare. There are different income limits for different age bands. So children under 1, household incomes up to 200% of the federal poverty level are eligible. And these are 2018 numbers. These should go up slightly anytime because TennCare is, there's always a slight delay when the new federal poverty guidelines are released by the federal government and when they're actually implemented as TennCare. So it usually happens around this time of year. So watch, these could go up. And of course, there's different, the age band 1 to 5 and then 6 to 18. It goes from 200% for under 1, 147% FPL for 1 to 5, and 138% for 6 to 18. And of course, it changes with household size. That's the 1, 2, 3 across the top. Now, medically needy spend down it provides coverage to children up to age 21. So 19 and 20-year-olds can become eligible through medically needed spend down if they have high medical expenses. I'm going to give you a sense of how this works. The monthly household income must be below the amounts that are listed here after subtracting allowable medical expenses. So, for example, if a family has a monthly income of $3,500 and a household size of 2, that income standard, you can see back here, household size of 2, $258. So that's their income standard. So they will need about $3,242 in medical bills. And those medical bills can be bills that are incurred during the month of application or the 3 previous months. Older medical bills that they pay during the month of application, and it includes all bills for the entire family. Everybody in the household unit, those bills count. So, and that includes things like health insurance premiums for the parents or another child. And the coverage starts from the date of the application or in the month of application whenever they reach spend down. So if there's a big medical bill, if they apply on the 1st of the month and then they have a big medical bill on the 10th of the month that brings them under the spend down income standard, that they should be eligible on that date. So again, health insurance premiums count, transportation to and from health services count, over-the-counter meds, vision, dental, hearing, medical equipment. And again, that's from the whole family. So it's a good way to get kids eligible who are over the income limit. There is also a resource limit. So excluding the homestead and one car, resources, so bank accounts, cash values of life insurance policies, things like that, they have to be under $2,000 for a household of 1, under $3,000 for a household of 2, and then $100 additional for each household member is what the resources have to be under. So that often does kick people out of eligibility for that. But if they have a lot of medical bills, they can usually get rid of those resources very quickly by paying some of them off, and then should qualify. And then finally, TennCare standard, and this is a particularly important one right now because it's based on our client situations, we do not think TennCare is screening for this or not doing a very good job of screening for this. So children under 19 who are on TennCare Medicaid, and then their family has some increase in their earned income. So dad gets a raise or a new job, parents start making a little more money. It puts them above the income threshold for the child category. They can do what's called rollover onto TennCare standard if they don't have access to employee-sponsored health insurance. So if, say, a parent's employee-sponsored coverage doesn't cover dependents, and if they are either below 212% of the federal poverty level or they have a qualifying health condition. This is a relic of the pre-Affordable Care Act days when insurance companies could discriminate on the basis of pre-existing medical conditions, but it's still the rule right now. So TennCare does have a list of qualifying health conditions, plus if it's a more rare disease or disorder, you can request that to be reviewed as a qualifying health condition. So below 212% of the federal poverty level or qualifying health condition, no access to employee-sponsored health insurance, employer-sponsored employee health insurance, and they have to have just lost eligibility for TennCare because of this increase in income. Cover Kids is for kids who are slightly over income for Medicaid, but the idea was probably not well off enough to afford private insurance on the individual market. So they can't be enrolled in another health plan. Just like TennCare standard, if the parents have access, but this one is just enrolled in another health plan. The income limits are substantially higher than the Medicaid income limits. It goes to 255% of the federal poverty level. It is a slightly narrower program than TennCare. There are some co-pays, out-of-pocket costs that come with Cover Kids that don't come with TennCare. And you're not covered on Cover Kids with what's called EPSDT, which is the Federal Protections for Children on Medicaid, which means it's a little easier for them to deny coverage on Cover Kids. And then if they're not eligible for Medicaid or CHIP, children are eligible to get a plan on the Affordable Care Act, the healthcare marketplace that was created by the Affordable Care Act, which is healthcare.gov. And they can't be eligible for Medicaid or CHIP. If they're over income, if they have incomes up to 400% of the federal poverty level, they're eligible for premium tax credits. That helps reduce the monthly cost of premiums. So many times you can get very low premium health care through the marketplace with those premium tax credits. There are also cost sharing reductions for children up to 100% to 250% of the federal poverty level. Given that Cover Kids goes up to 212% of the federal poverty level, it's a pretty narrow band of kids who might be eligible for this, but it's still an important benefit that can really lower out-of-pocket costs for the families. And just a reminder, when I say almost all kids are eligible, there are two main categories of children who are not eligible for any assistance. Those are undocumented children and most immigrant children who have been in the United States for less than 5 years. There are some exceptions to that for humanitarian categories like refugees and asylees, victims of human trafficking, but for the most part, immigrants have to be in the country for 5 years before they can get coverage. So other than that, all children are eligible for something, which is why it remains so troubling that we're seeing a rise in the number of uninsured children. Got a few more questions here. So a parent to try and log in and find her name, but couldn't find it. Is this for the...
I tried the phone. You can't apply in the phone. You can only use it if you've already submitted an application online or over the phone.
Okay, so that's about the mobile app, I assume. So say that again. There are several people in the room helping me with this. So
you can only use the app if you've already submitted an application.
Okay, so you can only use the mobile app if you've already submitted an application through the web portal. So that or on the phone. So basically there has to be already an account created for you before the app will work.
Otherwise it says case not found. I think that's what it is.
Yeah, case not found. Other questions? Supposed to be real time when looking to see if a child is eligible. The real time eligibility determinations, one of the big selling points of TEDS, the eligibility determination system, was it is able to contact multiple federal databases in real time to do things like verify household income by looking at the IRS and Social Security. It can look through at DHS to determine citizenship and immigration status. The problem is if there is no match, then they can't do it in real time. That's when they will send further verification. They'll send out a letter saying, we need proof of income for this month. Usually they ask for 3 months. That's technically not required, but that's what they do. And always send them what they ask for if you can. So that's why if there's not a real-time determination, it's probably because there is either no information in the federal database that they're matching to, or that there is some significant discrepancy between what was put in on the application and what the federal databases are showing. So as I'm sure you know, this is a developing situation. We've been aware of these problems, but the recent reporting on this has really increased the profile of this. So we are working as fast as we can to get resources out to everyone. We will make this PowerPoint available. We'll send it. It'll be on our website somewhere. You'll be getting a follow-up email after this. And again, we will be doing another webinar more in detail on how to determine if someone's eligible or not. So you can do things like if someone gets denied, you'll be able to say, well, they shouldn't have been denied. And you'll know that that's an appropriate one to file an appeal on. Please do follow us on Facebook or Twitter for more information. If you have questions about this or anything else, okay, got another question on here. Can you send us your presentation, please? Yes. Yes, we will make sure everybody has access to this presentation. We will keep you updated with any resources that we create or find, any news that we get. Follow us on social media, send questions to info@tnjustice.org. Give me a call. I'm happy to talk with anybody, Chris Coleman, and let's try to get these kids covered. Thanks, everybody.